And we've been talking over the last couple of weeks and months now about the mandate, but also we're realizing that Donald Trump is in the midst of a honeymoon period like we haven't seen before. I was looking at Morning Consult. Donald Trump just hit the highest net favorability rating since April of 2017. That's right after he took office. A majority of people approve of how he's handling the transition, and surveys show that people feel broadly warmer about Trump than they did over the last two elections. And it's not just the rank and file people, average Americans, it's people with the biggest wallets in the world, because they realize, you know, that old expression, if you can't beat them, join them. Well, they might not have voted for him in the past, but now they're voting for him by supporting his transition and trying to make it effective, because whatever he does impacts them.
Yesterday, I filled in on Outnumbered, and we were watching this presser of Donald Trump. It was more than an hour. It was so good. It was his first press conference. He really was. It was his first press conference since being elected the second time. And he covered so many different topics, from the drones to the CEOs that want to meet with him. He talked about how all these CEOs and individuals, which I think is smart on the CEO's part, want to come to Mar-a-Lago and be his friend. Right. Listen to this.
How was your meeting with Apple CEO Tim Cook, and did you talk about tariffs in that meeting?
The meeting with who?
Apple CEO Tim Cook.
I did have dinner with Tim Cook. I had dinner with sort of almost all of them, and the rest are coming. And this is one of the big differences, I think, between, we were talking about it before, one of the big differences between the first term. In the first term, everybody was fighting me. In this term, everybody wants to be my friend. I don't know. My personality changed or something. But I had, as you know, I had Sundar from Google, but I also had Sergey. And we do have Jeff Bezos, Amazon, coming in sometime during the week.
And yet, of course, Elon Musk, another business titan. And then you have people like David Sachs, who's going to be head of, crypto, and he's going to be head of AI. And he worked with them the whole time. So they definitely want influence. They want to say in it, but they have a peer that understands their business, started a series of companies turned into billion-dollar success stories, beginning but not ending with PayPal. And then you have people that just want to be a part of it. They don't want to be left out. And I also think that they want to, and I might be naive, but I also think they want to help the country. And I think they see this as an opportunity to help the country without being put into an ideological box, because this president is so different than a typical Republican or Democrat. He splits the differences on a lot of issues, and the party follows him. And the other thing is, I think on some level in 2016, a lot of these titans thought that they could have done the same thing. And they're almost kicking themselves. If Trump could have won, I could have won. And then now they're seeing what he went through, what he's done, the crowds that he got, what the popularity that he has, getting the popular vote, and then what he was able to do through being assassinated twice, and thought, you know what, maybe I couldn't have done that. Right. And maybe I should just dive in. And Elon Musk, I think, made it cool.
Well, to the point about the honeymoon, not only with the Americans, but also with Silicon Valley, for the most part, none of the tech companies supported Trump in 2016, none of them. And so his point when he says everybody wants to be my friend is they're realizing the importance of being close to the president of the United States. And that is why, one of the reasons why all these tech companies are now each donating $1 million to Donald Trump's inauguration. You've got $1 million from Amazon, $1 million from Meta, OpenAI's Sam Altman gave $1 million, and so did Perplexity. Donating to an inaugural fund doesn't really ultimately get you noticed much, but if you don't donate, that gets you noticed. It's like, hey, why didn't we get any money from these people? I looked into it, and you know, so they're all given $1 million this time. For Biden, you know how much Google gave? $300,000. Microsoft, $500,000. Amazon, about $250,000. So in other words, they're giving so much more money to Donald Trump. Maybe it's little penance. Maybe they want to have a really big party.
It's called the inaugural fund. What does that money go to? What does it pay for?
To pay for everything.
For a lot of the balls, a lot of the organization.
So for the parties, it's not for the administration. It's not for
right. It could go
just
be used
for that
for this.
night.
But you remember
January 20th.
And you talk about the amount of investigations. They started investigating the inaugural ball, like the inaugural fund. Remember?
Oh yeah.
Tom Perot.
Yeah.
They say, oh, what happened with this? What's going on? I'm thinking to myself, 2.5 years later, the Democrats were doing an investigation on where that money's coming from and how it was used.
Donald Trump also talked, as I mentioned, about the drone spotting. He said the government knows what's happening. He knows that the military, he says, they know where these drones are taking off and where they're landing. He also talked about SoftBank, and he had the CEO of SoftBank on at the podium with him, which is a Japanese investment holding company. They invest in companies that are operating solely in technology, and that could be anything from the internet to automation. They plan to invest $100 billion in U.S. projects over the next 4 years. That is double the amount that Mr. Sun, the man right there with him, made in 2016. And so he said, I'm doubling down. And then the president-elect said, well, why don't you double down again and give us $200 billion? Listen to this. It was a cute moment.
I'm going to ask him right now, would you make it $200 billion instead of he can actually, believe it or not, he can actually afford to do that. Would you do that?
I will try to make it happen.
That's good. All right, 200. He'll make it happen. 200 billion investment.
He is a great negotiator. Because I say, oh, President Trump is a double down president. I'm going to have to double down, you know? $100 billion and 100,000 jobs. This is, you know, my confidence level because that has doubled down.
100,000 jobs in America. Does that mean chips? Will we be able to make chips here?
It's interesting. In 2016, when he said he was going to invest $50 billion and create 50,000 jobs, something like that, some of the investments went to startups. Some of them surged, like Uber and DoorDash. Some ran into trouble, but that's always the way things happen with brand new developing industries. This time, it sounds like they're going to be putting this money into AI and AI infrastructure. In other words, the things that make the power and the infrastructure and the grid to allow AI to work. Right. That's where the money is, they think.
So the president's going to be set with executive orders. He knows what he wants to do in 30 days, 30-plus days when he gets in there, and he's trying to get his nominees across the finish line. But people are noticing the different tone they're taking. In fact, the headline in Politico, I think, is noteworthy of going over, and here it is. It says, from big tech to the media, the rush to kiss Trump's ring is on. But I think, and I had a chance to talk to him on Saturday, and I asked him, what is your take on this? Like, why do you think they need to talk to you? He goes, they want to know what's going on. And he goes, I go, how do you feel? But he goes, I'll see anybody, but I'm not going to forget.
Right.
So, and the thing is, I would love him to do this. Hey, Mark Zuckerberg, I understand you feel bad about what happened. You want to be part of the new administration. Appreciate that. Just allow Matt Taibbi, Barry Weiss, Michael Schellenberger to go look at the Facebook files like Elon Musk let me look at the Twitter files. I need to find out exactly what you're up to with the pandemic, exactly what you were up to make sure I didn't win the last election. And if you said you weren't involved, don't worry about it. But we'd like to know who was involved. And that's not redemption. It's you have to show to me. You have to show me you fixed it. At first, you have to identify it. Then maybe I'll have additional trust with you.
Well, right now, people are trusting him because those polls that I cited earlier, people are trusting that this transition is going to be smooth and that a majority of Americans hope that he is successful.
I think like you, Brian, I think call us naive. Just give him a chance. You know, we want the best for this country.
We are the country.
We are the country. Yeah. We want it to, you know, I really definitely believe that God intervened in some of this, that God is protecting our country in many ways, bringing people together, bringing these CEOs together who are very successful billionaires, and they're all working together. I've never seen anything like this.
Right.
So hopefully they'll give him a chance, and it'll be smooth sailing throughout this administration.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.